So
Very true.
there's an Eastern and Western perspective here, right? And obviously Ayurveda is this incredible body of wisdom. Deanna, what would you say is a Western perspective on supplementation that differs from the East?
When I think of the Eastern way, it's more about botanicals, it's more about herbs, it's the whole plant. It is the energetics of food and of plants. The Western model is very different. It's all about ratios. Nutrition science is about relationship. It's about zinc to copper, omega-3 to omega-6. It's mainly about macronutrients and micronutrients and sometimes phytonutrients, but not enough for me. I think we need to bring that in more. So I often think again of how do we bring these two approaches together? The Eastern, the intelligence of plants in such a way to look at their energetic properties, and then the Western knowing of mechanism. How do those herbs actually work in the body? Are they anti-inflammatory? Do they change metabolic pathways? So I think that there is great room for crosstalk amongst the East and the West.
And Deanna, it's also kind of happening because, for example, we used to take vitamin D on its own, right? And then later on, we learned that vitamin D acts synergistically with vitamin K. So now everybody takes vitamin D with vitamin K. And
magnesium.
And so we're seeing with many supplements that we realize that you have to take them in conjunction. For example, when you take turmeric, it is better to have it with black pepper, right? Because so this idea of synergism is also really important, right? So as Deanna said, some people take just a bunch of supplements and they take them for years. You always see the same supplements in their cabinet, right? And this is the idea that we need to change, which is very much what's happening to Western science in acquiring much of the wisdom of the East. This is happening through functional medicine and in other ways.
Beautiful. There are two things I just specifically want to mention it. One of the things we did was, like, for example, if you go back about 200 years in the medicinal practice, almost every doctor was a natural medicine doctor recommending herbs and supplements, not really supplements, primarily herbs. Then from there, we actually went into the part of isolating, active ingredients. From there, the actual word drug actually comes from I think it's a German word drudge, which means drying the herbs originally. Then from there evolved, and we are in today where there's a lot of pharmacological preparations where the herbs actually take the back seat. Now, going back to that, for example, when we found the vitamin C for the first time, ascorbic acid, when it came, it was just ascorbic acid, and everyone was like going hoo-ha about it, and they thought that's the miracle cure for everything in the world. Then along the way, they realized without calcium, it doesn't work. Then suddenly, every vitamin C comes with calcium. Then along the way further down, then they realized they need to put in a lot of rutin and all the phytochemicals into it in order for this vitamin C to be bioavailable. Now, there are two questions. What people were getting, what kind of value they were getting all the while when they're taking vitamin C is one thing, literally nothing. On the other hand, were there any other natural source? For example, you look into amalaki. It has one of the highest concentration of vitamin C on planet Earth. When you think about it, it's like 100 grams of orange has around 60 milligrams of vitamin C, comparing to 100 grams of amalaki, which has around anywhere between 1,500 to 1,800 milligrams of vitamin C. There's a huge disparity. And the thing is, your body loves it, and your body completely utilizes it. And also the vitamin C in amalaki is so stable. So that's when it just comes. To me, the only thing I'm just very concerned about that is when we go into filtering and refining and isolating, for example, like curcumin. Yes, it works fantastic, but there are studies which are just coming up and says, as such, turmeric itself works as effective as curcumin. I'll
give you another example, which is very much in fashion now. Everybody's using CBD in America.
Yep.
And CBD is a cannabinoid.
Cannabinoids, yeah.
Acts in the endocannabinoid system, which now we understand regulates immunity, digestion, mood, and many other things, right? But it's been recently coming into awareness that using the full spectrum hemp oil, which includes other cannabinoids and terpenes, is way more effective. And potentially the other components, the terpenes, potentiate the activity of the CBD, right? And this is the same with all our foods and supplements. Nothing works in isolation. There are no islands. Everything is a system.
Yeah, the whole is better than, parts of it. Eventually it just comes down to that. Beautiful.
So based on that, it's clear that there's a lot of different wisdom from the East and the West, and that it's not just about the ratios, but it's also about the integration and the essence of the plant actually existing in the supplement, having an extra benefit. And so when we look at production practices, whether it's the production of a more kind of a Western approach of a supplement, or more of an Ayurvedic based, farming production practice, what are the things that people should be looking out for before they're buying supplements to ensure that it's going through the highest quality production practice?
That's a really good point. That's something I feel very passionate about, because here we are living in a toxic environment and people take supplements to negate that toxicity, but yet they could be spending a lot of money on toxic supplements if they don't ask the right questions. So number one, first, explore the manufacturer from where you are getting your supplements. Ask them whether or not they are testing for microorganisms, for heavy metals, for mold, for yeast. And also, are they having third-party analysis of that supplement? So they need to be testing the batches as they come on through. And also the format in which it comes. She was taking gummies. She was only taking gummies as the form of her vitamins. So she was getting about 9 teaspoons of sugar with her gummy supplement. So sometimes these different supplements can be bringing in toxic things that we might not know about, or we may think are healthy because they're in a supplement that is positioned to be healthy. So we have to read the labels, and we have to really know the company that we're buying from.
Yes, this question really makes me think of the origins of organic India. In the beginning, Bharat and Babani, the founders of Organic India, were really, they opened the company Organic India, which wasn't called Organic India at that time, just because by command of their guru, who said, go open a private limited company. And then he said, start trading. India was opening up to the West and to the world, right? So Bharat and Babani started trading, handiwork and artisanal things, and then they started trading grains, and then they had the idea, because they had witnessed the power of Ayurvedic medicine, they had the idea of planting Ayurvedic herbs. But when they were looking for sourcing, they couldn't find, because the Ayurvedic herbs were put in humid deposits, and they were not kept in the right way. They were not even harvested in the right way. True. So they were not really effective. Then they met this master of Ayurvedic medicine, Dr. Narendra Singh, who actually had to go to the Sanskrit scriptures sometimes, because they were not even translated, to learn how to plant them, water them, harvest them, prepare them, so that they could maintain their prana and their effectiveness. And of course, the organic, so that they wouldn't be polluted with heavy metals and glyphosate and all the other things that industrial farming brings on. So this is how Organic India was actually started.
Beautiful. Just to add to it, very nicely explained. You see, like when we need iron, we don't simply take some rust and blend it into powder and just put in a mouth and drink with water. Your body hates it, and it can be very toxic. So what we exactly do is we actually look for iron source in the plants. On the other hand, when you think about it, like I always give this particular example to my patients, like think of 2 boys growing up. One is growing up in a village where he's, like really out there in the jungle, eating things and playing around. Whereas there's another boy in the city where he plays all the games in the computers, and there is no robot. So when you think about which one of them is going to be very healthy, of course, the one who is in the village, right? Likewise, when you think of a plant, and if you're actually spraying all kind of, chemicals and pesticides and give it all kind of, fertilizers and everything, the plant doesn't have to create enough of nutrients and phytochemicals into it, because it's already protected by itself, all right? Whereas when you actually grow it organically, the concentration of nutritional density is so high, sometimes 10 to 100 times higher, purely because the plant has to protect itself. So naturally, the roots are much more deepened up, and they actually try to get all kind of extracts, all kind of, elements into the plant. So when you actually eat that particular plant, it gives you a great amount of nutrition, and thus you get to transform your overall health. So thus going organic and also focusing on, which is very important, is that whenever you look for nutrition, you look for natural. For example, we are talking about moringa, we are talking about amalaki, we are talking about spirulina. These are all the complete nutritional concentration form. That is the primary concept of looking for supplementation. If not, go for second one, which is co-naturals, which means there are things extracted from nature, but in a dense form, which is second best. The worst will be from the sources. For example, calcium from oysters. I don't think that's the best source of calcium in any case. So that's your priority on which kind of nutrition you're going to look for is very vital, I believe.